Hey everybody, welcome into this Adobe Photoshop tutorial. It's not an Adobe Photoshop tutorial. Well, hello everybody, welcome into this Adobe Illustrator tutorial brought to you by tutvid.com. My name is Nathaniel Dodson. Today we're going to take a look at how to create some complex geometric shapes like the one you're seeing being assembled on screen right now. We're going to do this using Adobe Illustrator. I gotta be honest with you, I came across this icon, or something very similar to this icon, browsing through the App Store, and I forget exactly where I was looking around, but there was this camera app. I thought it had a pretty cool logo. I was like, hey, maybe we can make that in Illustrator someday. Set it aside, and then here I am, a year later, 2 years later, finally making a video about it. I thought it would be a cool thing to share with you and a really neat way to explain some of these techniques, particularly how to use the shaper tool to create these complex geometric shapes. And we're going to do a bunch of fun stuff with it and learn all kinds of little tips and tricks about Illustrator. So enough of me rambling. Let's jump into the app and check this out. I think you're really going to enjoy this. Here I am. I've got a document opened in Adobe Illustrator. If you need a similar document, it's just go File, New. And my document is 2560 by 1440 laid out in the landscape orientation. And then I have all these colors that we're going to be using. I've got the hex codes so you can copy them over and follow right along. If you want the background to be this color, the background is this 0E1924 color, and it's just a rectangle that's 2560 by 1440. Pretty simple. Dropped into a background layer, which we're going to end up locking up. But before we lock it up, let's do something kind of cool here. Select all these colors up here. Of course, as we're building, it's nice to have the color swatches there to sample with the eyedropper tool. Kind of an old-fashioned way to work with color in Illustrator, because what we can do is come over here to our swatches panel. We have those swatches or those colors selected. We're going to come down here and hit this new color group icon. It's this little folder. And we're going to say, hey, yeah, give me a new color group, not from selected swatches, but from selected artwork. And go ahead, yeah, we can go with global color. That's fine. Hit OK. And there we go. We've got all of our colors now in our swatches panel. Makes some easier, at least for me. That's how I like to work with gradients and things like that, is dragging swatches out. Boom, 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 boom. Drop them all over my gradient stripe. And I am good to go. So that makes me happy. And now that I'm happy, I'm going to lock up my background layer. I'm going to select my artwork layer. Let's drag in a sketch. You probably don't need to worry about you having this sketch. I just kind of have it for myself and my own reference. I'm going to drag in my JPEG here. Give it a second. Bada boom. Here it is. I am just going to scale it down to make it a little bit more consumable. This is strictly going to be a visual aid. So if you're following along with the video, you probably don't even need the sketch. You can just, if you're following along, you can see it in the video, and you'll see exactly how I'm chopping things up. In fact, I'm going to take this artwork, I think, and drop it down here into the locked up background layer just so I don't accidentally select it and drag it around. So there you go. It's down there. We locked up the layer, hitting the little lock icon. Let's go back to our artwork layer and begin actually factually building our ellipse or our shape. We're going to begin with the ellipse tool. My color, foreground color or fill color, is just white, no stroke. I'm going to click once, and this is what we want. An ellipse that is 180 pixels by 180 pixels. Hit OK. Grab our direct selection, not a direct selection tool, a regular selection tool. It is selected. Open up your align panel and then just align horizontal vertical centers. We're aligning it to the artboard, just dropping this thing right here in the middle of our artboard. We don't need anything else opened up. Now, what we want to do is we want to duplicate this ellipse like 18 times, maybe 17 times. We want a total of 18 concentric circles. So we're going to do this. There's a lot of different ways you can do it without getting into other ways. And I know there's a million ways to skin the cat. We're going to go object path, and we're going to offset this path. So when we go object offset path, we want to grow our shape by 20 pixels. We don't need to grow it by 1%, anything like that. We just want to go 20 pixels, boom, 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 as we nudge our way outward and hit OK. Now, we got to do this a bunch of times. So a little trick, if you need to do something like this, is to just assign a hotkey, even if just temporarily, to the whatever command it is you're using. In this case, it's offset path. My go-to is Command-Shift-6. That'll be the Control-Shift-6 on the PC. Just do whatever shortcut works for you. I skipped over this. Go Edit Keyboard Shortcuts. Real super easy. Come in here, choose Menu Commands. We're going into the Object menu. We're going to come down here to the Path menu. Within that, remember we went Object, Path, Offset Path. There's Offset Path. You select this shortcut area. I'm going to go Command-Shift-6. It doesn't conflict with anything. Wonderful. And I'm going to hit OK. Are you sure you want to overwrite this set? If you haven't created a keyboard shortcut set before, that's fine. It'll probably ask you to name it. You can give it whatever name you want. And I'm going to hit OK. And then I now have two ellipses. I've got my smaller center one and I've got my outer one. I want to make sure I have my outer one selected. And then just Command-Shift-6, boom. So there's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I know it's annoying. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. All right, and if we have to get rid of the outermost one, we'll do that. Now, they're all white, so as you can see here on my layers panel, they're annoyingly invisible. So I'm gonna just select all of them, and I am going to go to my swatches panel. I'm just gonna fill them with red or maybe orange even, just something that is noticeable. We can see them over here. So what I wanna do is I wanna select every other one because that's gonna be an area that gets punched out because we want a series of rings. That's what we're going for here. So let's go ahead and just select that and then hold down my Command or Control key. And here in the layers panel, I'm selecting every other little circle, and that's going to select every other ring. So a little time consuming, but really not that time consuming. It takes a couple seconds here. If I can get a hold of my scroll bar, voila. Here we go. Let's make it quick here, Nathaniel. Let's hurry it up. Something like that. And we're just going to make these a slightly lighter color. So maybe we'll make these yellow. All right. So what we'll do now is we'll select this whole kit and caboodle, the whole shebang, and we're going to go to our Pathfinder panel. You could do this here in your Properties panel. You have a Pathfinder section of it. Hit the little triple dot, and we're going to hit the Divide option. You see that down there? Divide. I'm going to go, yep, great. And there we have it. It will collapse everything kind of into this group. We're going to ungroup this group by going Object, Ungroup. And we've got a bunch of rings. What we need to do is select all the yellow rings and get rid of them. Easiest way, grab our magic wand, select that, delete. Now we just have our, what should be 9 rings. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now here's where things get a little tricky. I mean, it's been kind of complex so far, and I know I'm probably racing through it. I want to select the outermost 3 rings and group them. So select the outermost 3 and then hit Command or Control G to group them together. Say that we've got a group. I'm going to shut that off. Select the next 3 rings and hit Command or Control G again to group them. I'm going to hide that group. And then select the last group of rings, Command or Control G to group them. I've got my innermost 3 rings. Creating this particular effect is easiest if we just do it 3 rings at a time, because it's essentially the same effect repeated, expanded 3 times, and then the middle one is rotated 90 degrees. That sounds like a bunch of nonsense, and it is, but it's going to mean something when we actually put it together here. So now that we have our 3 rings, we need to create a couple vertical bars. Well, 3 vertical bars, or not vertical, horizontal bars. So I'm going to grab my rectangle tool. I'm going to click once. I'm going to say, I don't know, 2,000 pixels wide, and I want to go 20 pixels tall. Remember, the rings and the spaces are all going to be 20 pixels. So this bar that is going to essentially become a spacer, we also want it to be 20 pixels high. And then I am going to align this to the horizontal and vertical centers as well. So it's cutting right through the center of our set of circles. I'm going to select this. We're going to give this the color of yellow, just really any color. It could be pink, just something to set it off from the orange. All right, now we're going to select that shape, and I'm going to go Object, Transform, Move, and we are going to move this 0 pixels on the horizontal plane and negative 40 pixels on the vertical plane. It's going to bump it up 40 pixels, and we're going to hit the button Copy. Not OK, but Copy. See that? We just made a copy of it. Great. We still have our original. Select the original, which will be the lower of those 2 bars. Go back to Object, Transform, Move. And this time we're going to just move it on the vertical axis plus 40 pixels and hit Copy. So we've got 3 bars going right down the middle. Great. Let's select those 3 bars and group them by hitting Command or Control G. You can see here on our Layers panel, we're kind of keeping things organized. We got our 3 outermost, 3 middle, and 3 innermost rings, and now these 3 horizontal bars that we're sort of playing with. So what we want to do with this group is just duplicate it twice. So I'm just going to hit Command or Control C, and then Command or Control F, and then Command or Control F again. Command or Control F is not just paste, but specifically, it sort of serves the function of paste in place. Illustrator calls it paste in front, but it pastes those shapes exactly in place. Now what I'm going to do is drag a copy of these horizontal lines down above each of our set of rings. So our layers panel should look like this. Outermost rings, horizontal bars, middle rings, horizontal bars, innermost rings, horizontal bars. If you're looking like that, you're looking good. Let's shut off the horizontal bars for the other sets of rings and just begin here with our first set that we're looking at. All right, grab this whole thing. So the horizontal bars and the rings, we're gonna go back to our Pathfinder and we're gonna say, give me that divide function again. Give it a second, it's going to group it up. You can see there in our layers panel, bada bing, it's grouped up. There's a lot going on. We want to ungroup this. So let's go Object, Ungroup. And the first thing we're going to do is get rid of the excess bits on the outside. So I'm just dragging a selection over there and getting rid of them. Now what we're going to do is attempt to emulate this shape right over here, kind of as closely as we can. We're going to do this using a tool called the Shaper tool. I'm going to collapse this layer. I'm going to unlock my background layer because I'm going to drag this sketch in a little bit closer so we can zoom in and really get a good look at what we're working on here. All right, let me lock up the background again and come back up here to my artwork. We want to drag a selection over all of our artwork, and we're going to grab this tool right here. This is called the Shaper tool. That's the only tool you need. If you have a tablet of some sort, Wacom, Huion, whatever it may be, really helpful for this step, but it's not necessary. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to begin scribbling over areas that I don't want to keep. So I'm going to first focus on cutting this channel right here. So see this area right here? I'm going to cut that channel. It's right here. You do it with the Shaper tool by just squiggling. So like squiggle over the areas that you don't want, right? You see that? We squiggled over. In fact, we can get rid of these lines here in the middle first. We know we don't need them, right? Boom, they can go away. Then we're going to start squiggling here over this orange, over that, and then over this yellow kind of heading upward, right? So we've created that sort of ledge overhang. Then we're going to squiggle over this box here, and then this box here, and then this box here to kind of create this channel right here. So there we've created the right side of our shape. Now we're going to come over here and do it to the left side. So I'm going to squiggle over this box, and then this box vertically. Oops, I messed up. I didn't create enough of a squiggle. Make sure you get a good hard squiggle there. And then I'm going to do the same thing here. Squiggle, squiggle, squiggle. And there we go. We've created the base of the shape. Yeah, it's taken a couple minutes, sure, but really not that bad. Let's select the whole thing here. Let's go back to our swatches panel. Let's just fill it with that orange and we can take a look at it. There, that's it. That's the base of the shape. You could end the tutorial now if you want to. Please don't, but you could. If you feel like you've learned enough, if you have enjoyed the tutorial up to this point, I should add, go ahead and follow me on Instagram. My Instagram was hacked recently. I lost a whole tens of thousands of followers, whatever I was up to. I forget if it was 35 or 65,000. It was more than the few that I have now. So if you're into Instagram, it's your thing. I'm trying to post more behind the scenes stuff over there. It might be fun to follow. It'd certainly be fun for me. And hopefully I make it fun and worth your while and worth your follow. I don't want it just to be this marketing platform where I'm spewing, hey, watch my latest video, and there's nothing cool over there. I want to make cool stuff for Instagram that's not just regurgitating TikTok or pumping links to my YouTube. Let's get back to the tutorial. All right, so we've got our base shape here, and you can see in the layers panel, it's called a shaper group. I don't like shaper groups. I don't like the way it sounds. I don't like the way it comes off my tongue. So I'm going to go Object, and I'm going to choose to expand this object. I am going to expand just the object, not the fill or the stroke. We don't need to worry about any of that, just the object, and boom, it's a regular group. That's great. Fantastic. We love it. Now what I can do is hide this group and turn on the next group. So you can see it's slightly bigger. All right, we're going to do this essentially the same thing. Select these two parts, go to our Properties panel, go down to the Pathfinder section, divide this, give it a second. It's going to create this group here, as you see. We're going to select that group. We're going to go Object, Ungroup. And then we're going to grab the big wings hanging off the sides, get rid of them, and we're going to duplicate what we just did again. Now, maybe it'll be helpful for you if we convert it all to orange right off the bat, so we can go swatches, convert this to orange. Oh, look at that. You've got all this other stuff filling in, so maybe it's not a good idea. You could go in. It's just there's extra shapes in there, kind of complicated what's going on, but not really that complicated, but just annoying to try to change. I like to have the different color. I find it makes my life a little easier. So let's select all the artwork. Let's zoom in. Let's do what we did last time. Grab that shaper tool. By the way, the hotkey for the shaper tool, Shift and the letter N. I'm going to grab my tablet again, and I'm just going to begin squiggling away the bits that I don't want. So I don't want that. Is it going to let me do it? There we go. There we go. Sometimes making little loops is a little bit easier. We can get rid of everything here in the middle. Ba-boom. Get rid of, whoops, I went the wrong area right here. Boom, boom, bing, cool. And then on this side, we get rid of this little piece and this little piece and this little piece. Oh, you're always going to mess up. They say I'm a professional. I beg to differ. And you can see why. There we go. We've created our shape again. We're going to just do the same thing. Select it all and fill it with orange. Now it's working great. It's still a shaper group. We don't like shaper groups. We're going to go Object Expand. And we're just going to expand the object and hit OK. And we've got our second group. If we turn on the original group, you can see we're starting to build something here. We're cooking with fire. I'm liking it. Let's do our last group here. You can see it's not that difficult. It doesn't take that long once you kind of get it down pat. Go back to Properties, Pathfinder, Divide. It's going to give us our group like so. We're going to ungroup it, Object Ungroup. We're going to select the wings. We're going to get rid of the wings. Bing. Great. We could actually even select these bits in the center and get rid of them while we're at it. Highlight all the artwork. We're going to grab our shaper tool. We're going to zoom in and do the same thing here. So I'm just going to begin. How did we do this before? I got rid of this one. I got rid of this one. I got rid of that one. I got rid of that one and that one and that one. There we have it on that side. Cool. And on this side, I believe I went bing, bing, bing. I should kind of have it memorized by now. Voila, just like that. And we've created our outermost rings. You can see the shaper tool really makes it pretty painless. Swatches, let's fill it with orange again. Again, we've just chosen orange as our initial color so we can see it easily here in our layers panel. We still have a shaper group, so let's go Object Expand, do the thing we've been doing. No fill, no stroke, it needs to be expanded, just the object. Great. Let's turn everything on. Now, this is not what I want as the final group. By the way, we can get rid of our reference sketch here. What I want is this center group to be spun around and rotated 90 degrees. So here's how we do it. We're just going to select that center group and go Object, Transform, Rotate. And we're going to choose, well, there you go. It read my mind. We're going to rotate it 90 degrees. You could do whatever you want. Hit OK. In fact, we could go to the outermost at this point, and we could say, hey, rotate this maybe 45 degrees, right? Who cares? It's art. Do whatever you want. You could hit OK and go with that. That's kind of interesting. Make sure we lock up our background, though. Whatever you do, it's fine. Maybe we'll just go with this because, hey, why not? It looks even more complex. It looks like it was even more difficult to do. But you can see when you break it into smaller chunks, not that difficult after all. Let's do some kind of color stuff to this now. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to select all this. We are going to ungroup our three groups. So we're going to go Object, Ungroup. And it's just going to give us now 3 compound paths, which we are then going to regroup into one bigger group like that. And we will fill this now with a gradient. So just let's go with the simple black to white gradient. You can see just left to right, white to black, bada bing, cool. Let's open up our gradient panel here and say, hey, give me this at 90 degrees. We will flip or reverse the gradient. We'll start with the black at the bottom, the white at the top. And we're going to build our own gradient using these greens. So let's begin with our darkest green, drop it on top of the black. That's going to make us start with the darkest green down at the bottom. And then we're going to go to the lightest sort of seafoam green here, green at the top. And then we've got this kind of medium green that I'm going to drop in here around 25-ish%. And I'm going to expand that up toward the top a little bit more, just so that middle green kind of fills out the middle plus a little bit more. That lighter green at the top is going to act more like a highlight up at the top. Now, you might be seeing this looks a little bizarre down here. You see how it kind of starts dark green, goes to light green, and then when we get to our next set of rings, it starts dark again. Well, that's because Illustrator is still treating this like 3 separate shapes. In fact, it is 3 separate shapes. So it's really applying this green gradient over 3 different shapes. Now, you might like this effect, but you might not. You might want it to be treated as one full shape. And if you do, I don't blame you. Let's grab the gradient tool here. When we do this, we can start and just drag the gradient across 3 shapes. Hold down Shift, drag that gradient up to the top, just like that. And actually, you can even come in here and drag your colors just like this if you really want to mess around and make this effect particularly perfect or specifically perfect. You want more specificity. Now, as one whole global group, the gradient begins with dark green at the bottom, stretches to a nicer lighter green at the top, and we've got our shape doing what we want it to do. So let's just add a little bit of a glow to this. Let's add a little reflection on the floor and then a couple kind of specular highlights, have a little bit of fun with that, and blend modes, which are always kind of an adventure in Illustrator because it's for vector art. It's not for rendering blurs and glows, but it can be fun just to see what happens. So let's duplicate our group. Remember, we have our sort of the master layer. We're going to leave that alone. We're going to select the group of artwork within the layer. Command or Control C to copy. Command or Control B. Remember, we did Command or Control F to paste in front. Command or Control B is paste in place, but paste it behind. And you can see it pasted it behind. Cool. We're going to go Effect, Blur, Gaussian Blur. And we are going to apply an 80 pixel Gaussian blur. It's a behemoth of a blur. Funky looking, but it's hanging in there. And we're going to set this, I think we're going to set this to the blend mode color overlay. Now, or I'm sorry, not color overlay, color dodge. Now, this is going to look radically different if you don't have the same exact background color that I have here. And that background color, by the way, 0E1924, because this kind of green glowishness that it's doing in the back is that green blurred artwork interacting via the color dodge blend mode with that very, very dark blue background that we have selected and placed behind this shape. So just bear that in mind. If you have a solid black or just a white art board, the glow is going to look very different because we're using that blend mode. Now that we've done that, let's add just a little reflection on the floor here. And the floor is going to be created by an ellipse. What else is new? Hold down Shift, just drag out any old size. We want to create a true black here. So let's open up our color panel. I'm going to collapse a line. And we want to create a true black. So if you hit this little black icon here, it's going to give you black. But if you come over here, and you might not quite be able to see this because it might be hiding behind my head a little bit, but we want to choose CMYK from this hamburger menu. And we want to drag all of our little sliders over. So that's just a quick way, the way the settings are laid out in Illustrator to create just a really rich black. You can even drag this black into your swatches panel just so you have that quick reference to grab a really, really dark black. We're going to use that here because we're going to create a gradient. So let's use our swatches panel real quick and just do a simple black to white gradient for our ellipse. Let's drag our rich black over kind of the charcoal black they give us. See that? A little different there. And then for the green, let's just go with our very light green instead of the white. And we're going to choose to make a radial gradient. So we want it to start with the light green in the center and kind of billow out to just complete pitch blackness. In fact, I'm going to constrain that green even more to the center of our little gradient. All right, cool. Now that we have this, I'm going to hold down Alt or Option and stretch it out sideways. I'm going to collapse it down just a little bit, kind of something like that. And I'm going to set the blend mode of this up in the transparency panel or here in your properties panel. If you hit opacity, change the blend mode to color dodge. Now, it's a bit of an intense hotspot there on the floor. Now you can see as we get the glow closer to our artwork, it's kind of shimmering off of it a little bit. Interesting. I kind of like it. But the green is a bit intense. The best way to change this is not to reduce the opacity because that just begins introducing another element of stuff that Illustrator can mess up when it comes to rendering raster graphics, which, give Illustrator the benefit of the doubt here, it's not what Illustrator was made to do. No problem. Here's what you want to do. You want to change the gradient itself. So we want to select that green and probably open up our color panel again, if I can open it up here. And I'm going to go and give me HSB, hue, saturation, brightness, and just knock down the brightness of that green. Probably not that much, but just enough so we're getting a little bit of a hot spot. And if the saturation is too much or too little, you can adjust that as well, just until it kind of looks decent. So we've got that. And now that we have that, with this little glow, we just duplicate a number of times around our artwork. So I'm going to hold down Alt or Option, duplicate it. Maybe I'll move a copy of it up to here. I'm going to just crunch it in on the side. You see how it's giving us this crazy glow off the top. It's almost like it's stretching out the glow off the artwork. Whoops, what did I do? I just messed that up. I'm going to just nudge that in again. And in this case, this is probably where I would play with reducing the opacity a little bit, or if the opacity is not looking right, grab that green and just reduce it a little bit more. It's going to change the way that interaction happens. As you darken that bit of artwork, it's going to just de-intensify it a little bit. 50% opacity is probably not quite what I want, maybe 80%. And then you could duplicate this a number of times. So you could duplicate this, maybe throw one of them down here, change the shape of it. You're going to doing all of this stuff is going to do a lot to just change the way the artwork looks and appears to respond. Can make it appear more or less metallic, right? We could brighten this up here. Something like that, have that come off. Or what does it look like? Would it begin to kind of interact with our shape on the ground? That's kind of interesting. The opacity probably needs to be put to 100 to have that really do kind of what we're thinking. But maybe that's just too much, right? You know what I mean? Maybe it's just too much. We need to reduce the brightness a little bit, kind of control things a touch. Something like that. 1 or 2% does an incredible amount when it comes to color dodge here in Illustrator and playing around with that. I'll probably just do one more little shape here, pull this off a little bit further, maybe rotate it up like this, give it sort of this like nebulae breaking away from our shape. If it's annoying that a piece is hanging off the edge of the document, you could mask it, of course. I don't want to get into masking right now, so I'm going to use my direct selection tool. That's the white arrow. Grab that little anchor point and just drag it in a little bit. And then I'll probably reduce the transparency of this down to like 50%, something like that. So you can see here, we've created this kind of cool, interesting effect. You could add other three-dimensional elements to it. You could add some noise to it. Of course, those are all other raster effects and things that you would then have to add on top of this. But really, you could just expand upon this. You can change the color pretty easily. You can do a whole lot with this and have a ton of fun with it. So if you enjoyed this tutorial, it'd be great if you could hit the like button down there. Subscribe if you want. I make a lot of different tutorials. Certainly no obligation to do that, but it's fun to do. Follow me on Instagram or Twitter if Twitter's more your thing. But yeah, that's it for this one. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've learned a thing or two about Illustrator and the Shaper tool and kind of the power of the Shaper tool and what you can do with it. There's so much you can do with it. It's a lot of fun once you really dive into it and see what you can do with it. I hope you've enjoyed it. Have fun creating stuff. Create every day. Do we consume every day? Do we create every day? It's far more fulfilling and enjoyable to create something every day. Consuming feels good in the moment, but tomorrow you kind of feel crappy. But that's it for this one. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. That's it. Get it, got it, good. Nathaniel Dodson, tutvid.com. I'll catch you in the next one.